This video is brought to you by our supporters on Patreon. If you want to be part of the community that makes content like this, head over now. Morning everyone, Morning Glory here on the Good Areas live channel. I'll be honest, it was a weird morning because, of course, you had to keep one eye on the West Indies, New Zealand. I suppose you didn't need to keep it. There's no one's ever going to keep our roach out on that pitch. One of the world's greatest blockers. But Justin Graves, what an incredible effort that is. Not really a specialist batter, right? Like a number 7 type guy. I don't think people understand just how hard it is to make a score of that length when you're not a specialist batter. You know, there's so much that goes on. Just trying to have a look here. First class, where's his first class batting record here? Yeah, I think that was his first time. Yeah, it was his first double 50. He had made 151 on list day cricket, weirdly, as well. So, but that was only his 5th first class 100. And to be able to do that, you know, at the age of 31, just remarkable. I think it's someone I admire quite a lot just for his strength of, like, I don't think he's the most talented player, but he's so mentally strong to get the most out of himself. I've seen that quite a few times with him. You see it, you notice it with his bowling as much as anything. So incredible effort for West Indies to bat 163 overs, of which almost 70 of those were Kemar Roach and Justin Greaves, and drawing that game. Apparently the draw is not dead. Apparently blocking is not dead. It was an absolute pudding, that wicket. Now, let's get to the Ashes. I got so much Ashes. Notes on a session where not much happened. I don't know why. I thought the Michael Neser wicket was kind of inevitable, but England had a bit of a pep in their step at that stage. I thought the Carey one was a bonus because I thought Carey looked pretty good this morning. I think he probably just saw a ball with a bit of width and went for it. It was one of the few balls that kind of had any energy off this pitch. There was a couple of others, a couple of player misses. But what's really noticeable after that was when Starc got, 2 edges and they didn't carry to slip. Interesting. Not exactly what you would expect. It wasn't, one of them wasn't even that soft hands. He kind of pushed it a little bit. So it's something worth noting that, you know, with what's going on with this wicket. I don't know what looked better though, England or the pitch, because England just, it was like one of those sessions. It actually reminded me of England before Bazball, where England just decided to themselves, oh, no, we'll just make sure they don't score too many runs. And we'll make sure, you know, almost like an agreed upon session that they used to do under maybe even Alistair Cook before Joe Root was around. So it was, okay, rid of this. I should just put the heater on when I come out here. But yeah, so I thought it was lackluster, uninspired. I mean, where's the Ben Stokes who changes the field every 5 minutes? Why didn't they just bring the field in and say to Starc, see if you can hit? Like, I understand the idea of not wanting the lead to get too much, but it's not just about the lead. Australia weren't batting for the lead. Australia were batting for time, quite clearly. Does England not understand day-night cricket? Like, I don't know, there seem to be so many weird sort of elements of that, of like, it would probably been better if Australia got a quick 40 runs, right, at that point, and then Starc holes out, hitting one straight up in the air, then on a flattish pitch where it's hard to get them out and Starc is seeing them well and you can't get Boland on strike. Why would you not try and upset that rhythm? Why would you not try and speed them up? Australia knew exactly what they were doing. And if England know what they're doing, I'm not quite sure. Leads over 100. England have come back twice in the Bazball era there. This pitch is flat. There should be runs in it for them. But they're now into what? They've gone 4 sessions of bowling. You get halfway through 5, you know, and you start getting to the point, just tiredness-wise, of what we brought up in the when India collapsed against Sri Lanka, against South Africa the other day, last week, which is once you've been out for 5 sessions or 4.5 sessions, 5 sessions, 6 sessions, that's when you generally collapse afterwards. So the being within 100, 150 runs doesn't matter. And then you've got the fact that England's going to have to bat in the shade, in the night, in the dusk, all the 3 death options. I don't know. But there were just basic things that, like Stokes at his best is kind of as a captain, is made for this kind of situation of just upsetting the rhythm of the batters and just not letting them see the same thing. For instance, I think one of the big issues that I had with with what he did was, why did it take so long to bring a silly point in for Scott Boland? The man just has a forward press. That's all he does. Just bring him in. Just make him think of something different. And I think they did it like an hour later than I would have done it. They didn't bring on the spin. Mitchell Starc's he's gonna have a go at spin. Mitchell Starc's not a great defender of spin. He likes to hit over the leg side. I think with Mitchell Starc, you usually just put out a long on and a wide long on, and you just say, and you put those fielders out. You have a slip in, you have a short leg in, maybe even a second slip if you wanted to for him, and then you just see how Will Jacks goes. But again, they didn't do that. They didn't try to just have a conventional field for Starc, even against the pace bowlers. Yeah, I thought the whole thing was really, really weird and bizarre. There's also little moments where I thought England just got things wrong. Like the Ben Stokes had a field for Scott Boland. So Scott Boland was on strike for the start of one of his overs. And my first thought was, oh, I'll just hit this cover and take off. I mean, that's what Scott Boland's technique is basically made to, just sort of dab the ball to cover, right? And so I figured that they had cover in. And they didn't. What they did was they brought Jofra Archer into like a close sort of extra cover mid-off position. And Boland drops the ball on the offside, and they get through easily. And then Stokes has a go at Archer. And I was like, it's your field. If he wasn't in the right spot when you were starting to come in, that could be Archer's fault. But you are the captain, and he is almost directly in your eye line. That was easy. But the bigger issue was they just didn't have someone in that region. It was going to be really hard for Archer to ever cut that off, or for Point to ever cut that off. Although it seemed to be that he was angry at Archer, but it's hard to tell on TV. But you just had the field in the wrong spot, or you didn't have the man in the right area. As I said, one of the other things with the silly point is to stop him just being able to sort of rock forward and push that. So again, it just felt like they were playing a very, very weird game so far. The good news for them is that the pitch has flattened out. But if you followed this channel for a long time, I talk about this a lot. When the tail put on some runs, it's quite often a good sign for the batting side, right? Who are about to come in, that the pitch is a little bit easier and everything else. The issue then is when you get a sort of, was it Cameron Green and Josh Hazlewood against New Zealand a few years ago? I want to say Ishant Sharma and MS Dhoni is another one that comes to mind. Mike Hussey and Glenn McGrath. There's a certain point when you actually go beyond that, right? And you end up in a situation where they just take the game away from you and make you tired. I thought anything between 75 and 100 was manageable for England. I thought over 100 was a stretch. This pitch is flatter than I even thought it was going to be. So maybe up to 125 runs-wise is fine. But that they've now been kept out another whole session. It could be that they go bang after lunch because, you get a number 9 and number 10 having to reset themselves. It's not something they're used to doing, etc., etc. This does look a lot like an MCG pitch, though, at the moment. And that's where Scott Boland has spent a lot of time playing his cricket. So he's probably more suited to that. But if they don't do that and they bat for another 45 minutes to an hour and then get out just as it gets tricky, they've tired England out and got them to the perfect situation. It's just, there's so many things that can go wrong for England here. They're not mathematically out of the game, and they're not morally out of the game, if that makes sense. But it looks harder and harder for them to be able to keep themselves in a position. Like they almost need a Crawley Duckett special, maybe a Crawley Duckett Pope special to get back in. You don't want Brook and Root coming in with the lead of like -50, -75, whatever that may be. So anyway, Rushline have got their predictor at Australia at 85% chance. Just scrolling through the comments before we started. Seems like there's a lot of people who kind of genuinely agree with that. What I found was interesting is I noticed with Rushline and with some other people that the draw didn't change as much in that session. It probably shouldn't because of the period of the game when we're in at the moment and everything else. But I don't know how other people felt. I did think to myself, well, this is a very flat pitch now. But it's so early in the game that, sometimes you see people get a bit spooked when it comes to the draw, and they suddenly get into their mind that, oh, look how flat it is. That hasn't seemed to have happened as much here. And you can see with the AI, they're certainly thinking that. Starc's crucial batting. So this was a message from them a little while back on the Rushline about Starc. I did a very short video up on Instagram and socials about Mitchell Starc actually also batting quite well against the pink ball. So not only does he bowl well with it, he bats well as well. But it's just been a proper innings. But they haven't really changed the tempo. And I think with Starc, you really want Starc playing shots. He's looser when he plays shots. It's not that you don't want him defending, because in certain situations, on a different kind of wicket, I think you might want him defending. But I think here they really made a mistake here, and you can see you can see how comfortable he currently looks on this wicket. So yeah, certainly there's some issues there. You can go over and get the Rushline app and have a look at all their predictions. But let's have a look. There's a bunch of super chats. Maybe they were from yesterday because they all seem to have disappeared. But there's a couple of super chats we'll get to first. Varun says, what's the future of Bazball and players like Crawley if England fails to win this Ashes? Why media hypes up England cricket so much? Who hypes them up? I don't understand when people say stuff like this. Like, who specifically is hyping them up? There are plenty of people who had issues with the England team. They came out with a strong team in this series, but I've said from the start that they didn't quite have the bowling. On form, they probably had the better form than Australia, and then Hazelwood and Cummins have gone. And they've had two chances in this test series, and they might, who knows, they might still somehow steal this game, although it looks very unlikely at the moment. But they've had two chances in this test series to win these tests, right? If they just caught their catches yesterday, they would be ahead of this game. They should have won the first test as well. Right, they should have won that. So they're in these games. This isn't like the last series. So I'm not really sure what you're talking about there. Anyway, but what's the future of Bazball and players like Crawley if England fails to win this series? It's a fascinating question. They have to change, right? And they have to change quite dramatically. And I don't know what the future is, because I think Crawley goes, and I think Pope has to go. It's not as if those guys are in the side just because of, like, Bazball, though, either. Like, there is an element of there aren't that many other players. I think Hasib Hamid comes in. I think Stokes probably... it'd be interesting to see if Stokes hangs around. Be interesting to see if Root hangs around. Like, I can't see why he would leave. But, they're an age... he's at an age, too, where he might be thinking of the future. Like, there is that possibility. But, yeah, the legacy of Bazball is always going to be defined by this series. And so far, after 5 days of cricket, they are massively behind, and they are one bad session away from going down 2-0, and you don't come back. They're not going to win the series if they go down 2-0 against Australia, are they? Maybe they could draw it, but, I think they've come back once since World War I. I think they've come back once from being 1-0 down against Australia, which was 55-56, was it? When they lost by an innings in the first test match. Weirdly enough, if I remember correctly, there was also a tail-end partnership by England that helped them out in that series. It might have even been two, but they had the Typhoon Tyson as well. So a very different kind of team than we see here. Although Mark Wood is probably the closest version they have to that, but not quite Typhoon. But yeah, so I don't know. I think it's a fascinating one. Do they completely implode? I think Key, McCullum, Stokes, they're three decision makers. Going to be hard to keep all three of them. I think Key definitely goes. Where do you end up on McCullum in, if this has happened? And then does Stokes want to keep playing, right? He's bowled 25 overs today. There's a lot of cricket in that at the moment. Starc is averaging 11 with the ball and 58 with the bat. This is going to be the greatest series by anyone ever. Highly unlikely, but just a hypothetical. Very good point. Yeah, I think it's ridiculous. He's hang I'm just trying to think of the best way of kind of putting it. So I just have to bring the test match up because yesterday I forgot to do that and I couldn't tell when I was due to finish. Look, he's been magnificent, hasn't he? I heard Jason Gillespie, I think it was on TNT, talking about how not only has the wobble ball come in, which is obviously a big advantage to Starc the bowler, but also he's changed his technique a little bit so he doesn't fall over when he's bowling the ball across the right-handers a little bit, which is a normal thing for left armers to do. They kind of collapse a little bit. And so he's keeping, probably because of the wobble ball, he has to keep a little bit more technically correct. And so he's just a better bowler than he's ever been before. But the other thing I would put here directly, which I do think is worth mentioning, is that Michael Neser decision, it's probably, like, obviously he is only took, the 1 wicket, I think? Unless I'm forgetting one. But he could have got Crawley out early as well. But having that number 8 in this situation makes that Australian team just look like they just looked flimsy in the last test, right? They got away with it, obviously, but they looked a little bit flimsy in the batting order. And having an 8-9, like they usually do, which is come and Starc, just strengthens them a little bit more as well. And it allowed Starc to not have to come in last night in the tricky time. Nisa got through last night with the help of another drop, of course. Didn't go out first ball today or anything, although it was fairly early. Allowed Starc to come in the daylight. It's little things like that that have kept going Australia's way. Kiwi Nick, clearly asking about the other test match, says, good draw by West Indies. Shame the Kiwis being down 2 bowlers, especially Henry. It will be interesting what New Zealand choose for their bowls for the next test in 3 days. The pitch at the end there was defiantly dead. It was incredible, wasn't it? There was a ball I was watching. I had both screens up, obviously. There was a ball I was watching where I think it was Duffy bowling, and I was like, what's Duffy bowl? 133, 135, tall. And I was thinking to myself, that's the exact kind of bowler I would just be, like, with my skills in cricket, I would not be able to face Jacob Duffy. He's too tall. And at that pace, I would not pick the ball up, even if he was shorter. He bowled a ball and I thought to myself, I reckon I could have hit that. it just seemed to die off the surface so much. It's very rare I see a quick bowler in Test cricket and think to myself, oh, I could hit that. I could have hit that ball of seam. So yeah, I think, and look, these things happen. It's a remarkable test match. I remember my dad watched a lot of day one. I think I eventually went back on MV play, but I didn't see much of day one. But I kept saying, how did they get bowled out? And I thought they still had enough in the first innings. And then obviously when they went nuts in the second innings, New Zealand, I thought, well, they're going to win this by 300 runs, right? It just didn't go that way. So all credit goes to the West Indies. But as you said, there's some issues there for New Zealand. This comes back to what's happening with England now, what happened to India against South Africa. It's really, really tough once you've been in the field that long to recover. It does take something out of you. And I think it's one thing that as cricket fans, we don't always understand. I talked to Deepak from First Umpire, and when India collapsed, he just couldn't get his mind. And I was like, no, this is a normal thing that happens in cricket. So yeah. Rohit says, why don't we allow player replacement due to on-field serious injuries mid-match? It makes the game so much unfair. E.g. Gill, Matt Henry, it's a must-need. We should not have replacements for injuries, Rohit. There's a reason we can't do it. Every fast bowler in the world has got an eagle at any particular time. Anytime a batter gets hit on the finger, you could replace them. We can't have injury replacements. I don't think there's a sport in the world that has injury replacements. Obviously, concussion replacements are different. To be honest, though, that's more about legalities than anything else. I mean, I'd love to say that sports are being really, really good with concussions, but when it comes down to it, they're terrified of legal precedents there and what happens to players in the future. But we shouldn't have injury replacements. If you want this, what you actually want are substitutions. I've talked about this over and over again. There are guys who come into test matches with injuries that they could pull out with. You're also then looking at independent doctors making the claims. What if an independent doctor goes, that's not a real injury, and the player goes back out and does their knee, everything else? It's a no, you just can't do it. We will eventually have replacements. We will eventually have substitutions in cricket. It's just an accident of nature that we haven't had them yet. Prudvi says, what would be more tiring for Starc with regards to his bowling? Batting slowly and blocking it out, or slogging till you get out? And, there will be a part that he will not be quite as fresh when he's bowling because of this. But it's not like he's been batting for 2 days, right? He's batted for 1 session. If you are swinging wildly, you do actually have some issues. Like if you're missing the ball more, I think me and Robbie talked about this on a Kimappa recently. You kind of puff yourself out when you're swinging really widely and you're not hitting the ball. Over a period of time, if you're hitting the ball, it doesn't quite tire you out. But yeah, swinging hard and trying to score and scampering for singles and all those sorts of things does tire you out. Like, if you talk to a player after a T20 game, you notice how much it takes out of them compared to a test match at a normal pace, right? Players get sort of tired and achy in a test match, whereas they get exhausted in T20. And so there is a big, big difference there. But I don't think there's anything that's going on with Starc at the moment that he wouldn't be able to handle. He had a day off, right? And now he's had 1 session of sort of gentle batting. I think he'll be fine, right? Like maybe they don't want him bowling for a full session, but they probably don't want to bowl for a full session anyway. If they get 150, 160 in front and the shadows are in, they might declare. Andy says, has there been studies on CTE in cricketers? Yeah, Cricket Australia, I believe, are the leaders in this. There are some former players that certainly there are some question marks over. I think Alan Border got hit in the head a lot. And Alan Border has, I don't know if it's Parkinson's disease or Parkinson's syndrome. I've never heard him be asked that question, so I'm not sure which one he has. But that is something that boxers get, which is now related to CTE. He might not have that. He might just have Parkinson's disease. But if you go back and have a look at how often Alan Border got hit in the head, I know there's some serious questions on some other players. I believe that Chris Rogers and Justin Langer were told not to field at short leg anymore. Again, 2 small openers who got hit in the head a lot. There's some West Indian cricketers that we definitely believe there's some CTE issues on. I think Herbert Chang might be one of the more famous ones there. But yeah, short top 3 batters are the ones that, because those are the guys who not only are they getting hit in the head more than taller players, they're getting hit in the helmet more, and they're also often fielding at short leg. So they, again, more likely to get hit in the head. So there's certainly been some studies over the last couple of years, but I don't know. I'm not an expert on it. I think Malcolm Conn might have written a piece on it for the Best of Substack a while back, and we did a red inker on it, but I don't remember all the details off the top of my head. But I know that Malcolm it's something that he has been very interested in, because I think he was at the SCG the day that Phil Hughes passed away as well. I'm trying to remember that podcast back. Nitesh Dubey says, do you think the Trinity of English cricket will have to pay with their positions if England end up? Yes, so we asked that question before, Nitesh. Obviously, you might have come on a little bit later, which is fine. Yes. I mean, it's more than just the test thing at a certain point, right? Because it's also limited overs cricket, yeah? Like, when it comes down to it, they have not been very good at limited overs cricket for a long time. I know they scraped into the semi-final of the T20 World Cup, but they've been pretty poor for a while. So yeah, I think there's definitely an issue here with the whole setup's not quite working right. And now McCullum is coaching both, right? It actually makes his position even more fragile, I would have thought. I don't know what Stokes... I thought there was always a chance that Stokes might have been done anyway. He's put his body through so much. I don't know. Do Stokes... And you can throw Root in there as well. I don't think Root's going to go. But do Stokes, Root, Key, and McCullum have it in them for another rebuild? Right? Now, you've also got the fact, what does the ECB do? They've backed these guys absolutely to the hill. Everything they've wanted. They've allowed them to not train as much as other teams. They've allowed them to talk about the sort of the drinking and the champagne culture. And there's been, it's not as bad now, but early on in Bazball, there was an awful lot of drinking, right? They've allowed them to talk about cigars, like things that cricket boards and, and sporting places don't always like to be involved with, right? They've allowed them to talk about being entertaining rather than winning. Does that all come back now? Right? Because at a certain point, the people who are involved with running English cricket have been running Surrey cricket, right? Surrey is an entertaining side and they win a lot. You know what I mean? Like, are they just going to be like, okay, well, we gave it a go. This was when it was supposed to work and it didn't. But it was always a danger. This is the problem with English cricket. If you only go to cycles of how good you are in Ashes and you... As I said, historically, they are not good in Ashes because there are historical reasons why they don't play well in Australia, and there are historical reasons why Australia play better in England. That's an issue. Music are like after every music crick. I don't know. Music crick says after every English match, fans are either like, "Wow, what a win!" or more frequently, "Shit, what a loss." Yeah, and that's the other problem of they have created a system which is obviously that's what it is. We're sitting here going, Australia's well on top, and what did Rushline have before? Was it 88% chance of winning? Was it? I'm just trying to remember back. 85% chance of winning, right? And there will be lots of fans who will have that as even higher, right? And everything else. But England has actually won from this position a couple of times in Test cricket, which again is a remarkable feat. It's just that they've also lost games that they absolutely shouldn't have lost. And, you can have a look at the Perth game recently as a good example of that. You can go back to New Zealand when they did stuff. Like, it goes in both directions. I said this about 7 or 8 years ago, that England were the most interesting team in world cricket. And Twitter did not like that at all. Did not like that at all. I'm sorry, 8 years in, they have been by far the most interesting team in T20 cricket, in one-day cricket, in Test cricket, even in women's cricket at times, right? Like, they've been really fascinating there as well. And yet, they are not a good team and have not been a good team consistently across all formats for a long time now. There's lots of issues over there. But it's not over yet, this one, of course, because I still think this pitch is very flat. Kiwi Nick says, classic New Zealand weather, wet, gloomy first 2 days, and then drought conditions last 3. Question on the England team, will Jacks actually be used this test? Yeah, what I was interested in that first test, though, is, you're right, it was wet, gloomy in the first 2 days, but it wasn't like Kemar Roach ran through them, right? Like, that's what I found interesting about that particular, just to get back on that test match again. If you go back to the first innings, why can't I find it? It was just in front of me. If you go back to the first innings, New Zealand get rolled for 231, but Roach takes 2 and Seals takes 2, right? Not exactly what you would expect in those conditions. Those are the 2 guys you think that are going to go through you. And obviously when New Zealand bowl, it's a little bit different. But that's why I was fascinated about that test, Nick. Question on the England team, will Jacks actually be used this test? They should have used him already. I think they've already made a bit of a mistake there in not going about that. I would continue to bowl him after this session, and I would have in outfields and just see what Starc does. I actually think they just need in outfields in general. Roll says, any bowlers are as fast as Starc at 35. How old's Mark Wood? Because Mark Wood's faster than Starc, isn't he? Is he the same age? Mark Wood age. I thought he was 35. Yeah, he's 35 as well. So, yeah, we should get used to this role because we've seen it in baseball as well. But what is incredible about Starc is not that he's fast at 35, although that is part of it. It's also that he's got more skillful and become a better all-rounded bowler at 35 without losing any pace. So generally, someone like Starc might get skillful, but they lose pace, or they might keep their pace, but never be all that skillful, right? The incredible thing about Starc over the last couple of years is how much better he has got at bowling in Test cricket with red ball specifically, without losing anything that made him Starc. I think that's just remarkable. Anyway, that's it for me on the Morning Glory. Thank you to everyone who was up with me. Everything Jarrod said Australia won't do, Australia have done. Siddharth says. No, I said that they would drop Lion, and everyone told me I was wrong, and they dropped Lion. So I don't know what you're talking about, Siddharth. Yeah. Wait. Why are we suddenly bringing those up? The cricket's back on now. Where did these ones all go? Australia batting out the session with 116 lead means Starc and Boland get the pink ball in the twilight zone. Yep, we all know that. And part 2 of that one was Ruckshit. I can't see any of these super chats, Ruckshit. So why did Joffre and Gus go short? Why have England been going short the whole time? Right? The other thing is that, again, it's the lack of lateral movement that they get off this pitch. I'm not saying Australia are going to get crazy lateral movement because this pitch is flat as... Will Jackson's suddenly spinning the ball now. Now Nathan Lyon's like, come on, guys. But yeah, I don't really understand. I understand the short stuff. I actually think they didn't do short stuff right either. So I think England even got that wrong again. But yeah, they should be pitching the ball up more. Part 3, Asami. Cast looked like he bowled 6 different lengths with 6 different plans. Yeah, Cast isn't an issue for England. I'm not sure they know how to use him. I'm not sure he knows how to replicate things. I have to go. The cricket is back on. Thank you very much for the super chats and everything else. We'll see you again very soon. Bye-bye. Ross Taylor couldn't see at night or when the clouds were in. Eventually, he had to see an eye specialist who would fix his eyesight. In the 2 years before the change, he still averaged more than 50 in international cricket. The top level of batting talent can basically see in the dark. That is who we are talking about in our new book, The Art of Batting. Head over and order your copy today. This video is brought to you by our supporters on Patreon. If you want to be part of the community that makes content like this, head over now.